Matterport specialise in 3D space capture, making scanning and capture easy and accessible. And joining me now in the studio is Kris Atkinson, AEC specialist at Matterport. It's lovely to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we're going to be talking about the solutions that Matterport supply, the new Pro 3 camera, and also look at some real-life case studies. First of all, can you tell me about the Pro 2 camera, which we've been selling here for a little while? Yeah,
so the Pro 2 is actually an infrared camera. You can actually see from the front of the unit, we've got a number of cameras on the front, and we also have these 3 LiDAR sensors here. So what they actually do is they spray a grid of points onto nearby surfaces. What it does is it actually takes a measurement from the time it hits the point and travels back, and that is how we gauge the depth away from the camera. So this camera is really useful. It will scan in about 21 seconds. It'll do a 360 revolution and capture images and the depth sensor information at the same time. Once that's done, you can obviously upload that to your Matterport account. That's where Matterport get their clever hands on it. We process the data and we create what we call a showcase experience, which is essentially the end deliverable for a customer. They can then share that space with customers, they can drop in, they can take measurements, they can add important information, and it's really the nearest virtual alternative to actually being there on site.
Okay, let's talk about the Pro 3 then and how we've developed from the Pro 2, because there's a different kind of technology involved in this, hasn't it? Maybe some different ways in which you can use the camera. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so it really is it's a technology track change for us in the evolution of Pro 2 to Pro 3. As I said, Pro 2 is an infrared camera. Pro 3 is actually a LiDAR camera, so more commonly known as a laser scanner. The two main benefits of it compared to the Pro 3 is the Pro 2, because it is infrared, is impacted by the sun's natural infrared rays. So if you're scanning on a bright sunny day, it tends to wash the information out, which can prove outdoor scanning sometimes difficult, but not impossible. LiDAR, on the other hand, doesn't have that restriction. It has a much greater range as well, so we can actually capture larger environments quicker, faster and easier.
So making it relevant to the AEC space, which I know you're a specialist then, how would this make life easier for people? You know, what solutions is it sort of, you know, giving an answer to? Yeah,
so Matterport's we've had this core use case for many years, and it's been about the promotion of spaces. It's been about selling your home or trying to get people to come to your restaurant or your museum, and it's really effective for that. But in my line of work and in AEC, that is a use case that is kind of down the scale a little bit. It can be used. An architect wants to show off how their design has come to real life, and it's a great way to do that. But for actual construction and so a lot of the tasks that we have on site, it's more about documenting and recording the status of that site at that particular time. Why do we do that? We do that because we want to highlight any issues that may be occurring that we may not get actioned, and they may spiral and they may cause problems with the time and the budget of it. So it's spotting those issues
before they happen.
Exactly.
So we said at the top it makes it easy and accessible. You mentioned 18 seconds for a scan. How easy is it to actually use though? Do you have to have done any training before, or is it sort of out of the box? It's pretty simple to use.
It is pretty simple. I would say scanning has, especially in AEC, has often been the job of the severe. You know, people who have been to university and trained to specialise in this area. And there is still very much a need for that area. But what this actually does is this brings scanning really accessible to anybody. So there is a case of, you know, within 15-20 minutes, I think you could scan your home, your environment with ease, without any issue. It's all done through obviously the hardware, the camera, which is the capture element. There is an app that can be downloaded onto a phone or a tablet, and that is essentially the controller. So as you're going around and as you're scanning individual positions, you start to build up a floor plan, an environment of the space, and you can actually see the areas that you might have missed because they're still black or they're underneath. So what you're trying to do is paint the full picture by moving it into various positions. It is a line of sight technology, so it can only scan what it can see. But it really is useful. And then we do what we call automatic registration, where it stitches each scan. The software actually figures this out for you, shows you where it's positioned. And it's literally a case of, once you've got all your environment scanned, hit the upload button, it comes to Matterport, and within a few hours we will be delivering you your virtual tour experience, your digital twin, if you like.
Using it in the AEC space, where obviously you're looking at things like moving things around, design, maybe calculations, dimensions, that sort of thing, then how is this actually being used at the moment? Can you give us some use cases?
Yeah, so it kind of goes through that whole project building life cycle, if you like. I mean, right at the front end, you get your architect. Your architect is often dealing with not an empty site. They're often dealing with existing buildings that are being renovated or refurbed. And you know, usually there isn't a lot of information about those buildings. We're lucky if we have the hard drawings that the architect did originally. We have to go to the archives and pull them all out. So what the architect is essentially trying to do is to build up as much information about that environment as they can. And the way to do that is by scanning it. So they can go in, they can scan that, scan data that will come back will allow them to take floor plans. It will allow them to create their initial building information model. And things like condition surveys. You know, if you know that a building has been in disrepair for an amount of time, and you know it's flooding and there's burst pipes and things like that, the architect needs to know about that, because it's going to have an impact on how they design and coordinate the building going forward.
Absolutely. You've got some great examples of video, like I say, those kind of tools that I think we're used to, but then taking them to the next level with that detailed information.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it in practice before, you know, doing a condition survey, and it's somebody going around with a photograph and with a camera and a clipboard, and it's, you know, right, this doesn't look right, there might be an issue there. What the Matterport experience does is it gives you the whole environment in context. So it's something that might have been missing out of the photograph that is going to have an impact on the issue is seen. It really is the way to kind of efficiently understand the environment in a virtual setting.
There are some obvious advantages to that. We've mentioned some of them, but what are the main reasons then that you would use something like this, rather than, like you say, sending out your surveyor who will, you know, do all his lovely calculations? It will probably be fabulous, but you know, what are the benefits of doing it this way over that? And I know there are plenty. Yeah,
I mean, generally the high-level surveyor coming out, they're bringing an expensive piece of kit, and expense is generally accuracy. You know, sub-millimetre accuracy, and that's what in AEC a lot of our scanning providers are known for, and that is the first question that customers have: how accurate is your scanner? In reality, if we look at the whole building life cycle, there's only a small percentage that actually needs that millimetre accuracy task. You know, it's a case of setting the building out or setting pieces of equipment in exactly the right position so they can all fit together. But because the expense of these higher end scanners is there, it means that people want to see the return on investment. They want to roll them out and use them time and time again. But what that's actually doing is it means we're being inefficient with our time. We're spending more time on site because we're over capturing things, and we're actually beginning to become data hoarders. One of the stats that really I liked last year, I saw from Mandy Mock of Intel. She said before 2019, we only had 10% of the world's data that we had. So in the last 2 years, we've created 90% of the world's data.
Wow.
But in construction, 95% of us on projects continue to misuse or not use that data at all. So it's not about the efficiencies of how we capture, because that's really simple, click of a button now. It goes down to how we effectively use the data on our projects.
I like that, data hoarders. I mean, invariably, you know, data is very, very valuable, but there is that danger, as you say, that there can be too much. Almost.
There is.
So, and this simplifies a process and can be used time and again, can't it?
Without a doubt. I mean, there is no need for every building project to be sub-millimetre accurate. And if you're going out and that is your intention, you're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to try and achieve that, if it's even possible. What Matterport has really done is we lay less on the accuracy element, and our real focus is that our product has been designed with documentation and collaboration in mind.
Yeah,
so
cool.
highlighting those issues, marking them down and making the teams aware efficiently that they are there.
Absolutely. Talk me through sort of the process then. So you go around with the camera, you capture it, you've talked about sending it to Matterport. What happens with that data then? It's very, very quick that you're able to get back this file, but what happens in between? Can you talk me through the process?
so we've got obviously there's the hardware element, but then the other part of Matterport is a subscription to our service.
So that's how it works.
So you capture the environment, you upload that to your account. Essentially our AI will get a hold of it, that is Cortex. And Cortex is really great because what it can do is it can actually, because we've got such a vast library of spatial data, actually the world's largest, it can actually create 3D depth from 2D imagery. So even using your mobile phone, there's a Matterport app, you can scan the environment you're in, and it's actually Cortex that will be able to convert those 2D images to 3D.
Okay.
So what we're actually doing is we're making it a 3D representation of the space. We provide it and wrap it all up nicely in a showcase viewer. And in there you can share that with anybody just via a simple URL because it's all cloud hosted. You can measure, you can annotate, you can tag, all those kind of elements that you might want to showcase to people or those working on the job.
So we introduced you earlier as AEC specialist at Matterport, but you've actually come from the AEC industry, haven't you? So in terms of practicalities, not just a sales pitch, in terms of how it actually works in real life, talk to us about sort of the way in which this really has changed and added value to perhaps old methods of doing certain things.
Yeah, I mean, laser scanning has been around for a number of years, and it is the norm for AEC. But what we find is we're using high-grade equipment. So there are a number of vendors out there, and these are quite expensive bits of kit that take training and additional software to do it. So when I was in industry, one of the real pain points for me was sending gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of data to somebody.
Yeah.
And then once they actually got it and downloaded it themselves, it's how good are they at using the software to be able to interrogate and understand that. So there's real areas where something cannot quite go right.
There's a lot of room for error, isn't there? Mistakes happening.
But I think that's where Matterport is the really useful part, in that there is no transfer of data because it's all cloud hosted. All your customer or your project team needs is a URL link they can drop in, and it's the most easy environment to actually understand, going around, taking measurements, the whole lot. To actually, if there's anybody who can't use a Matterport space, I will be shocked, because it literally is that simple. It's click where you want to go. Kind of thing.
I've used it and it is very user friendly, isn't it? So we can definitely see how there's some real world benefits as well there. The big buzzword at the moment of digital twin, we think we've spoken about it many times this week here at Scan. Did a podcast this morning where we talked about what it meant. But in terms of what digital twin means for Matterport and where you guys are sort of heading in these industries that you're sort of, breaking into, what does that mean? Yeah,
so you're right. It is a real buzzword, and different people from different industries use it in different ways.
Yeah.
So for me in the AEC, it's always been a one that what Matterport and what a lot of the companies do is we get a digital representation of a space. We're scanning the environment. Now, the twin part of it is the bit where there is actually a real-time connection between the physical asset in the world and the digital version. So the two are reading off each other. A great example of that is, think of your sat-nav.
Yes.
You plan your sat-nav, you put in your route, and as you're driving along, there's an accident on the road ahead. Now, the satellites will tell you and suggest an alternative route to avoid that accident. So that's a real-life digital twin of the road network. Yeah. So that's exactly what we're looking at for our buildings. The idea that our buildings will have sensors on equipment, on heating and cooling, and that it will be able to track how many people are coming into the building, what time of day they leave, if the heating needs turned up, it'll do it automatically. It's allowing us to kind of make more actionable insights from our environments. Really is that connection between the real and the virtual that allows us to understand it. I mean, think of an Amazon factory, for example. You know, you want to know where a certain piece of equipment is, but it's all racks and shelves, and you'll get lost very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, the digital twin, you can search for it; it'll be able to direct you there.
Yeah.
You know, almost sat nav for a facility, if you like.
You're very good at your analogies, making it sort of easy to understand. I love it. So, I mean, there's some fantastic solutions that this equipment and the software and cloud is provided. But in terms of where this sits price point wise, is this accessible to people that might want to use it? Where does it sit sort of in the market?
Yeah, so as I said, obviously there's a subscription element that comes to it, and that depends on obviously your usage, how widely you're going to be using it. But then the other side is the capture device. So you can download the Matterport app for free, sign up for a free account, give it a go. I would really recommend that. But as we get up and we start looking at some of the units that we manufacture ourselves, the Pro 2 is priced at about 3,000 Great British pound. Again, for an infrared camera, that will be really useful, really sturdy, really beneficial to capture and digitize the space with 4K imagery. Yeah. And because LiDAR technology is slightly more expensive, the sensors, the units inside it are more expensive. The Pro 3 comes in at about £6,000, so about double the price of that.
Yeah.
But it is still the cheapest LiDAR laser scanner on the market, and it's important to understand where that comes in and why the price point is as it is. It is very different from your high-end scanners. We're not designed to compete with those guys. Those are 70 grand units that are really, really accurate. One of the analogies, again, you mentioned that, I like this one, this is my favorite one, is think of two cars. You've got your Formula One racing car and your VW. They are both designed for very different purposes. Yeah. One is a performance machine. It is designed it's tweaked and retweaked every week before every race. Again, it's the same with these scanners. Some are designed for high accuracy, sub-millimeter measurements. Yeah. Matterport is really designed for effective documentation, collaboration, and the ability to ingest and understand an environment at ease. Yeah. That'll save you the time, the effort, and the money.
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk to us about the solutions that it provides, the time saving and all of those elements, it's pretty cost effective, really, I would say.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Excellent. Well, Kris, thank you very much for coming in, telling us about your products and the Matterport solutions. It's been really insightful. If you would like to get hold of a Pro 2 or a Pro 3, you can do on the scan.co.uk website, and some of the videos that we've referred to today, so that you can get a real sense of how it works. We'll drop links to that in the description for you below.